1947, about 5 July at the Pentagon. Now this is still the Army Air Force. The duty officer at Army Intelligence, it's really late in the evening or early in the morning. This colonel from the Air Force comes in, Lieutenant Colonel Garrett, and he's in there late. So the duty officer has to make a notation that he came into this area, and he told. This is after the UFOs appeared on the scene. He made a notation. He says Colonel Garrett came, and he explained that the reason he was there, that he had been out investigating UFOs, and it's taken a lot of time, and he's been doing it for a little bit now. Okay, so they're doing it in the Pentagon. They're doing something in the Pentagon. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
On the 3rd of July, 1947, the editor at the Idaho Statesman, the aviation editor, and he's been watching these UFOs for the last couple of weeks or so. He calls General Twining. He's also he helped initiate the Idaho National Guard, so he has some influence to talk to General Twining. General Twining is interested in what he has to say anyway, so he tells him about UFOs. And General Twining said, "Yes, I've heard about these things." And he talks about Kenneth Arnold, who was one of the ones the first one to see it as far as the newspapers are concerned, and some forest fire lookouts and some other cases. And he asked General Twining, "Are you going to do anything about this?" And General Twining says, "Yes, you can write a story saying that I'm going to look into this, that the Air Materiel Command was going to look into this." And General Twining gets off the phone, and we found this memo. He's writing a memo to his second in command, a man named General Brunel, and he says, "We're going to initiate a study into these flying discs. Come see me." And that is in the AMC correspondence that we were able to find that. I wasn't able to find that. I found the earlier letters, but I didn't find these. So, right after that, the story appears and goes worldwide that AMC is looking into these things. General Twining, being a pretty smart cookie anyways, he got in charge of General Vandenberg and said, "Hey, I'm doing this on my own, but I want to let you know that I am, so you're not blindsided." So then...
General Vandenberg, like Vandenberg Air Force Base.
Yes, that's right. That's named after him. He's the vice he's the vice commander of the Air Force at the time. He had just got through being the director of Central Intelligence. So, okay, so they started investigation out of Wright Field, Air Materiel Command. Once again, the Pentagon duty officer, about the 14th of July, here comes Colonel Garnett again, and he goes into a longer explanation about what he's doing. He says, "I've been chasing down these flying disc reports. Some of them are hoaxes. One of them tonight was a toilet seat. Somebody flew out a window and called the press. but he says there's really interesting things. I'm making a list about them, the ones that are substantial. So that's an entry in the duty log for the Army intelligence. Later on, the end of July, he has made up this list. He's got about 16 UFO incidents, and this is found in the FBI files. It's not found in the Air Force files. The FBI has been informed that the Air Force is looking into this stuff. The FBI is follows suit and starts doing the same thing. Colonel Garnett continues to accumulate cases, and he by the end of August he's got quite a few, and he writes a summary, says flying discs over the U.S. and a General Schuligan in the Air Force, Army Air Force Intelligence, sends that to General Twining. Now we don't know we don't have the cover letter, but we have the flying discs over the U.S., but we know that General Schuligan sent the letter because Twining refers to it in his letter. So he sent this to Twining. Apparently they wanted AMC's opinion on it. So now, one of the letters that Twining had signed, at the back of the letter, somebody had written in pen that they had a meeting at AMC with senior aviation specialists. Colonel McCoy, who was in charge of T2 intelligence, General Brettonell, who was in charge of engineering, General Put, who is an expert on propulsion, and there was about 8 officers that attended this meeting. So they came up with recommendations what AMC should do, and they sent them to Twining. Twining said, write up a letter to the Pentagon and explain what we want to do. So now that's, I don't have evidence of that, but it's obvious that he did that. He did say, hey, write up a letter, because they wrote a letter, and
totally.
People don't understand military correspondence, so they can't decode some of this stuff.
I bet a lot of it's crossed out too. Like what do they call that? Where
no, there's no redaction in this letter.
No
so
redaction.
General Twining,
no redaction.
Yeah, redaction. That means crossed out.
Right.
Okay, so
right.
General Twining's letter, under the date, it's got HHM / telephone number / another group of initials / the telephone number. That's called a blame line in a military letter. That's the person.
Right.
The person that wrote it didn't necessarily sign it. So Colonel McCoy, who was in charge of intelligence, his actual title is a Deputy Commanding General for Intelligence of AMC. That's his title. But he's only a colonel.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I have this skill. I am actually a trained storyteller. Do you want to work up the story in it for me?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Do you want to workshop this story with me for a minute so that we can really get it down to what the story's about? Because there's so many characters that you're introducing, so it's really hard for me and
well, I'm going to go. I'm going to
really...
go and summarize this at the end. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
because I think we could workshop your story really well and get it down to its essence, so that it's easier to communicate.
If you're a UFO guy, you recognize some of these characters. Although people they don't know their own history, so they can't tell that.
Right.
Anyways, Twining is the important
power
guy here.
Story is a very powerful thing. I'm giving you a
Twining is the most important character.
An opportunity here. Right now. Oh, what's his name?
I said Twining is the most important.
He's your protagonist.
Twining is the most important character,
and main character.
McCoy is his deputy. And
okay, Twining and McCoy, right-hand man. McCoy, got it.
So
Twining and McCoy.
These two guys are. Now, a lot of the people that I talked about had, in the Second World War, their job overseas was to find and seize advanced German weapons and manuals and plans and things like that. That's what their job was. That was what McCoy's job was, to translate the stuff and microfilm it in the Second World War.
Okay.
So most of these people that I've talked about previous to this have been involved in that kind of action over in the Second World War. So McCoy writes up the letter, and we know that because of the blame line. The blame line has his initials on it. And Twining's letter is to the Pentagon, and he says, General Shuligan from the Pentagon sent this summary of flying discs over the U.S., and our opinion is that these things are real and not illusionary. They actually probably exist, and AMC's opinion is that they should be investigated. And there probably should be some further investigation. They send that to the Pentagon. Now that reveals from the 1946 LeMay Symington correspondence, what Twining is doing is he's asking for an actual project. He had an interim project that he started on his own authority, and he is asking for an actual project. And that's actually what happened. The Air Force Intelligence writes a letter, puts Twining's information and flying discs over the United States together and some other correspondence, and sends it to.
Twining was on a mission to get these letters to the Pentagon, to get these letters to the powers that be. Why did he want?
Because he was. That's how you get a project approved. So that's what he was doing. He was trying to get the project approved. He was trying to get a project approved. So.
I see. Okay.
So what's happened is we found the documents that show how an interim project could be done, or would be done, and Twining had the authority to do it, and he did it. And then towards the end of the year, when it's time to think about the next year's budget, he was asked his opinion on flying saucers, or his command's opinion, because that's what he did. He had a meeting of experts within his command. Then Then he wrote a